Hey everyone, Pascal, Andy here. Today I want to share with you a keynote that Alex Melville done here in Montreal. He was in crypto in Montreal 03. I met him with a few other guys and we kept in touch since then. So it was an amazing time, and then he decided to do his own keynote at Divan here in Montreal on Saint Laurent. So you can see there's three parts in the videos that I did here. So the first part is the Bitcoin introduction. The second part is him basically just answering questions during the break. We only have the audio on that. And the third part is the I would say the technical side of the blockchain and the Bitcoin. And you'll see that I'm gonna miss battery, but we still have a very good sound. So I hope you're gonna enjoy that, and see you later in crypto in Montreal. Bye bye.
All right, thanks everyone. Super happy to have you all here. I really love sharing about this stuff, and afterwards come up to me with questions, and I'll have all of these slides up online. So come to me after, give me your emails, we can stay in touch, and I can message you these, and I can also show you where all of my other talks, if you're interested in other parts of Bitcoin, will be. So, can go forward. We've got me speaking and control up there. So yeah, like Jonathan said, going to give two talks. This is the basic breakdown of what we're going to do. Going to try to talk for 40 minutes here. You should keep me on track for this. I'll have some questions, relax a little bit, and then I'll come later and give a technical talk. And that'll be more kind of a continuation of this, but deeper and talking about cryptographic hash functions and other fun things. So that's the plan.
So can you get started and just tell us a little bit about Bitcoin and the history of it?
Yeah. I have like a story, how I think about it playing out. So we'll talk about this history. I'll show you like just how using Bitcoin actually looks like. Some people, it's all like very abstract and blockchains and Ethereum, and I'm just going to show you like it can just be an app on your phone and how you use that. Then go into some more questions that, from what I've seen, people are interested in Bitcoin when they first hear about it. And just to say, like, why, who is this guy? What is he doing here? I've been learning and working with this stuff for about 6 years now. And, like, people have been talking to me today saying, oh, the price is going way down in Bitcoin. What do you feel? What do you do? I really don't look at the price that much. I think right now is the most, by far, exciting time to be in this crypto space, be in Bitcoin. There's so many things going on. Like every week is something new. There's a new development, a new paper, a new attack going on, and it's really just a joy to be in. And I knew nothing about this, just sort of stumbled on it when I heard about it in college. And I've been learning about it, and it's so exciting to be in, and I want to share that with you. I want to share some of this excitement and show that anyone can do this. Anyone can go and start learning about this. The concepts are not that hard once you have someone who can teach you. So that's why I'm here right now, to share this with you. So I want to give you like the abridged version of what has happened with Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was created in 2009, but before that, sort of setting the stage, you had the 2008 financial crash, you had the Great Recession, stock market's going down. Go to the next one. Stock market's going down, and in order to combat this, the US government and a bunch of central banks all around the world start basically printing money. It's called open market operations, but they're increasing the public debt in order to inject more money into the system, get people going out and buying things, sort of trying to like jumpstart the system. And then in 2009, Bitcoin arises, and it's solving a bunch of technical problems that people hadn't been able to solve before, all at the same time. And it's done almost as a response to this 2008 crash, where people realized, wow, or at least a lot of people thought, these banks we can't trust them. There are a lot of people, like in 2008 and 2009 and a little bit afterwards, it was really contentious whether printing all that money and increasing the debt and putting it on to later generations was a good idea or not. And so as part of this, almost like miraculously, Bitcoin arises. And the idea behind Bitcoin is that you can have a currency, something of value, that you don't need to rely on a central bank to print and keep the value of and promote.
Just a quick question. Do you
Yeah.
think the Bitcoin was partially made in response to like frustration at bank bailouts? This was, there's a lot of tension about that.
Yeah, so like there are so many amazing, just quirky and amazing stories in this space. One of them is that the first transaction, the first block of transactions ever made, had hard-coded into it this message from, I think either the Guardian or it was about Merkel, where the line was something like, Merkel considers another infusion of money into the system. So this is like a political message by the creator of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto. Who is Satoshi Nakamoto? Is it a he? Is it a she? Is it a they? No one knows. This is one of the strangest things about Bitcoin, is this person who made all of this possible is some internet identity who we don't know anything more about besides their connection with Bitcoin. We still don't know. They're actually a billionaire right now, or multi-billionaire, because of all of the coins that they've mined. In the very early days when no one knew what was going on, no one knew about it, maybe 5 people knew about it. And I'll explain. Something happened to him. So just to give you an idea of why do we care about banks and what does Bitcoin have to do with it? Here, I'll just do this when I want you to move forward. So normally when we explain cryptographic things, we have characters, Alice and Bob. So before Bitcoin, if Alice wanted to send some money to Bob, here, can you move it forward? She would go and say, okay, I want to send $100 to Bob. Can you skip it forward one more? Yep. And the bank would go, okay, yep, we'll do that. We are the guardians of your cash, of your value. Send it to Bob. Yay, Bob's got it. This is pretty much how all payments work, except for cash. Cash is really peer-to-peer. I can go up to Jonathan, hand him $1, bam, transaction done. But otherwise, you're going through your Interact or ACH or some of these other payment systems.
So why do I have to go through a central process?
Because, so this is what Bitcoin solves. If you didn't have a central process, there's certain properties that money needs to have. One of them is that you can't what's called double spend it. So double spending is if I hand you $1, it's really simple. It's almost like you wouldn't even think about it. If I hand you $1, I can't go and hand that same dollar to you, right? That just doesn't physically happen. It's a physical bill. But if you have a digital bank-based currency, it's all just numbers in a computer, right? When it comes down to it, your whole balance is just your name and then some number on the right side, just rows of these things like an Excel spreadsheet. And so you need someone to keep track of to make sure that if I send my rent payment to you, I don't send that same amount of money to someone else to, pay for another house that I own. It's called the double spend problem.
So Bitcoin means I don't need to have that bank say that I didn't spend
Yeah.
it twice.
Bitcoin means you don't have to rely on this bank to watch over your money and make sure you're not double spending. You rely on math and a bunch of what are called miners, and I'll explain those in the next talk, to validate your transactions for you so you don't double spend. So now with Bitcoin, you can have 2 people anywhere in the world. And this is one of the key points. You can have anyone in the world who has an internet connection be able to send a currency back and forth with each other. And before, you had to rely people on someone who had a bank, which is not really the majority of the world. But far, far more people have connection to the internet, or even just a phone with connection to the internet. So I said that Bitcoin started in 2009. In 2010, this is the last post ever made by Satoshi. He's just saying, oh, I have some other things I want to work on. I'll respond to you later. And then he disappears. So this was 8 years ago. The creator of this now like multi-$10 billion currency, we've never heard from him, her, it, they since 2010. So it's really one of the great mysteries of Bitcoin, and then like I'd say the modern world is, who is this person? It'd be like someone who created the internet, but we don't know who they are. They just like arrived and bequeathed it to us and then floated off somewhere else. And they've never moved any of their coins. They're just sitting there.
Do you think that Satoshi is dead, alive, one person, less?
So, yeah, I hope he's dead. I hope he's dead. Because what's cool about Bitcoin is it doesn't have, like, humans really want to have a leader, you know? It's just something that's in all of us. It's like how we're wired. We want to have a leader. But without Satoshi, we just have to solve it ourselves. We have to do all of these new things that have never been done before, like new ways of governing ourselves, figuring all that out. And if Satoshi were to come back, it would, I think, be chaotic and a lot less interesting and probably much worse, because who knows who would try to hurt him or capture him or coerce him in some way. But there's been like 2 people who have claimed they're Satoshi and had somewhat of a legitimate claim on it, but they've been shown not to be Satoshi, or they haven't proved themselves fully. Yeah. So then for another 4 years, Bitcoin was growing, people were working on the software, and just like now where we see a big price increase and then this crash, like it's been happening in the last 2 days, I've seen this before, like what happened here. I don't know if you can see the prices there, but basically the price went up like 4x, 5x, and then went down 3 times less, just shot up exponentially. And this was a weird time where the only place you could really buy and sell Bitcoin was a Magic the Gathering online exchange in Japan called MTGOX. It's just bizarre, all right? And it was run by this one guy who I think was American or Canadian, and he was found to like not actually have all of the funds that people thought he had, and it collapsed and brought the price down. So we've seen these kind of like deaths of Bitcoin before, and it's really resilient, and it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. So then after that, there's been massive explosion in companies in the space, different cryptocurrencies, like Ethereum came out. I'm trying to figure out if it was 2013 or 2014. There's been what's called a hard fork from Bitcoin, where there's like a irrevocable split in the chains. That's what Bitcoin Cash is. My company BitGo came out. A bunch of stuff coming out. But we're still just in the very beginning. Like there's a lot of problems that still exist that need to be solved. And like I said, it's the best time to be in it right now, because we're just starting to understand what these problems are and solve them. So that's like the 10,000 foot view of Bitcoin. You have this mysterious creator who disappeared about 1 or 2 years in. And now you have companies moving in, people trying to develop the protocols, do their own spin on the coins, and try new things. So before I go any more in, I just want to show you like how this actually looks, how you actually use it. So I took a couple screenshots from my phone. And I want to show you, it doesn't come up too well, but there's an app you can download called Bread, okay, like the food. It's called the Bread Wallet. And you open it up, and there's basically, great. There's pretty much 3 options. 2 options really, send and receive. This is just showing a list of the transactions that I've made in the past, people I've sent to or people who've sent me funds. So if I wanted to click send, can you push it forward? It just shows up with something like you would see in PayPal, where you have like, who do you want to send to? How much do you want to send? Then you can write a little memo.
So what does that mean? You've sent 1,000 Bitcoin?
Yeah, so because like people don't like to look at 0.0001 because one Bitcoin is worth 10,000, might be 8,000 now. Who knows? It's up to 11. There we go. There are these things called millibits, which is what the units are there, and it's just a thousandth of a Bitcoin. Yep. So then, yeah, pretty simple flow. It's just saying, do you really want to send to this person? You'd click send, give them your Touch ID, and then if you wanted to receive, you do it just with a QR code. And this isn't really as big in like America or Canada, but elsewhere in the world, QR codes are a lot more common, and they're just a nice way to succinctly share like an address with someone. And an address is kind of like an email address, but you receive Bitcoin with it instead of email. Okay, so this is like a big question, but I want to take a stab at it and try to answer it. Can you move it forward? So the big thing, like if you take nothing away from this talk except for one thing, I'd want you to take away this, that Bitcoin, the problem that it solves, what's it about, is about trust. So trust is this really weird thing. Trust is like, it's like all around us. It happens in all the relationships we have with our boss, with our family, with our government, but we never really think about it. We never really like point at it and go like, oh, I have this much trust for someone or that much trust. And what Bitcoin does, like what I said earlier with the banks, is it lets you no longer have to trust a third party, like someone who's not, if I'm transacting with Jonathan, it's not Jonathan or I, it's a third party. You don't have to trust them now to exchange value, where before Bitcoin, you pretty much always had to, unless you were using cash. So like when you hear about these ICOs and they're trying to tell you of some new coin they're trying to create and they're trying to get you to give them like $20 million, think about what is this coin doing that involves trust? Is it somehow solved by not having to trust someone else? And so one of the interesting things with Bitcoin is that you start to realize that there are like gradations of trust, and maybe you trust this person a little and then the system makes sense, or maybe a little bit more. And it just gives you a new perspective on something that was always there in life, but you never really paid that much attention to.
So just to clarify, when you say Bitcoin is about trust, what
Yeah.
you mean is you don't need trust anymore. Like
Yeah.
in data interactions, you always need trust, but with Bitcoin, you don't need it anymore.
Yeah, you don't need to trust this third party. Yeah. Okay, so another way to look at it is just to break it down into its like base components, and I'll talk about each of those. So first of all, it's a ledger. So a ledger is just like, think of flip it forward, think of an Excel spreadsheet, or think of like a file cabinet. It's just a collection of information. It stores information in a structured way. Yep, can you shift it forward? Yep. And then keep going. So it's global. So this is, printed this out this morning. You can kind of see where the blue is more apparent. These are where there are nodes running Bitcoin. You run this Bitcoin software in order to become a part of the network. And there are nodes over every continent on the planet. And all it takes up to bring one of these is you just download some software. It's like downloading an app. And you can run it on your phone like I showed you, but it's sort of like a less powerful version. So the main nodes you can run on your computer. You can run on a Raspberry Pi.
So why should anyone choose to be a node?
Yeah. So again, it's about trust. And when I have my app in my phone, I'm giving up a little bit of trust in that and this is where it just like gets technical to explain it, and it's hard to explain it, but you give up a little bit of trust when I run this on my phone.
Because I'm giving you access to my phone, or?
More because like you can't verify that certain things are happening or not. Like again, back to that double spend problem, you can't verify all cases of someone trying to double spend you, someone trying to steal your coin. But when you run a node, it's like provably you can show that you are protected.
What does it mean to be a node?
It means to just run the software, like when you run your browser, or you just like click, you download it and like click start, and it'll start reading in transactions, reading in what are called blocks, which are just collections of transactions from the network, and verifying those, verifying that everything's valid.
So you're contributing to the overall system and verifying the system is that all the transactions in the system are valid.
Yeah, you're kind of like a watchman.
Okay.
You are making sure everyone's playing fair, and most importantly, like making sure your own balance is secure. Yep. Along with being global, it's decentralized. Like Facebook is global, right? every continent has Facebook, but when it comes down to it, there's just a bunch of servers that Facebook controls. And if they say something, if they want to do something about Facebook, they change it. You can't stop that. With Bitcoin, it is not controlled by anyone. It's just you sitting there verifying everything works. And then there are these group of people called miners, which I'll talk about in a bit, that like process things for you. So they're kind of like fulfilling the role of PayPal, but they're distributed across the world and validating transactions. So it's append only. So the way I think about this is, you know how you can, like, if you're a couple, you can carve your name in a tree, and then that will be on the tree forever, and the tree will grow 100 years ago, or 100 years in the future, you can still see it. This is the idea with blockchain, is that you can write something on it, and it will never disappear. So there are all these like little messages speckled throughout of people like professing their love for someone, or writing like gobbledygook, or writing secret messages, and it's there forever. It's never going to go away. Yep.
So append only just means you can't delete anything.
Yep. Append. Yeah. Better said, append only means you can only add, you can't delete. And it provides cryptographic security. And what that means is that you can be really, really, really certain, like even if everyone on the planet was running a computer algorithm trying to hack you, you can rest assured that your coin is safe. And while banks do use cryptography to protect themselves, in the end of the day, it's just a bunch of zeros and ones sitting on a computer somewhere. And that represents like the state of things.
So just to clarify, so if someone had like
Yep.
a supercomputer from Microsoft,
Yeah.
decided they wanted to try to get my account, they wouldn't be able to do it?
No, even if like every atom on the planet were to be its own computer, or every atom in the universe were to be its own computer, running, trying to guess what your password is, it won't work.
Just math.
Yeah, that's where like the numbers are so large that we aren't really made to understand how large they are. But it's like a 1 followed by 80 zeros, if that helps at all, in the sense of that's how many operations you'd have to do to try to hack someone. So it's very secure. It's cryptographically secure. And at the last meetup I was at, I heard a couple people asking, like, how do I value this? Which is a really good question, because for me, I've been in it a while, and I just sort of like take it for granted that it's valuable, but like I can totally see what the hell, like what is this Bitcoin which can go up like 10x in a couple months and then shoot way down, and there's no one backing it. Like, where does the value come from? So it's a tough question. Warren Buffett, if you've read anything he writes, he's like he's one of the biggest investors, most well-known investors in the world. He's very anti-Bitcoin. He's like, I don't own it. I'll never own it. I have no idea how to value this. So I'm going to take a stab at it, and we'll see how that goes. So one way to measure it is these miners I've been speaking about. These are pretty much massive server farms. And there's folks doing it in Montreal here. There's folks doing it also just in their rooms, in their houses. and they're running a computer algorithm, kind of like randomly throwing a dice in order to try to guess a secret value, which will give them a bunch of Bitcoin, but then also make these transactions like permanent. That idea of append only, adding these blocks on, these miners running this algorithm are what secure it. And to run these algorithms, to run these functions, to run the software, they need to expend electricity, right? Just to run a computer, you have to do that. And electricity is a resource, time is a resource. You can think of all of the miners, like take all the energy they're expending and add it up and, put a certain kilowatt per hour price on it. That is like what I think of as the base value of Bitcoin. What people think it's worth is what people are willing to spend to try to secure it.
Just to ask, are you
Yeah.
going to talk more about the miners in this talk, or are you going to wait for the technical?
The miners is really the technical. Yeah, it's going to be in the technical talk because there's really no good way to describe it that's not technical. I wish there was, but it's not very satisfying to hear you roll a die and you get some Bitcoin. Maybe it is for some of you, but I think for most, not so. So yeah, stick around for that, or come talk to me after this, and I'll try to explain the mining concept more, because it's kind of in the background, but it's extremely important to just how the whole system works, even though for the most part, people don't interact with the miners really ever. Yeah. Can you go back one? So another way of looking at it is, what is the value of being able to transact with anyone in the world who has an internet connection? Before Bitcoin, this wasn't possible. You had to go through the banks, or you had to pay them in cash. Now it's like you can have anyone who can put something on the internet, join the global communication that is the internet. Now they can receive and get paid and get something of value for contributing to this global digital society. So that's just like one idea, which is extremely powerful. It's like before the internet was a thing, oh wait, can you zoom back one? So before the internet, you still had software, but it was controlled by these central companies, right? You had like AT&T, and if you wanted to, AT&T is an American company, but if you wanted to deploy some app or get something out there for someone to read, you had to go through these set gatekeepers, like AT&T, or I think CompuServe was one of these early internet, like internets before the internet. And then when you had the internet become a thing, you had anyone who could create a website, or anyone who could pay someone to create a website, or anyone who could just run a computer and plug it into the internet. They now had the ability to reach everyone in the world, create a fan base, or talk to anyone in the world. And like, I think humans are the most important thing. They should be the central part of your life. And if you empower humans to do something, then that's going to be more important than, I don't know, building something really big, like a big tower, or, okay, I'm kind of rambling right now, but when you had Bitcoin, or before Bitcoin, you had to go through all these banks, right? And the banks really controlled who pays who to what, who can enter the system, who can be in the system. Now you have, similar to the internet, you have anyone who can get a computer and make a wallet, make a Bitcoin wallet, something that can receive Bitcoin, like that bread wallet. They can receive value for doing something. They can contribute and then be rewarded for doing it.
So an example
Yeah.
might be, there are a lot of homeless people across Canada and the United States. And as it turns out, most homeless people actually have smartphones.
Yeah.
But they might not have banks. But this will give them access to the economic system.
If they have access to the internet, yeah. And it's people around you, it's people on the other side of the world, it's people everywhere.
Can I go back for a second to the mining, just because not everyone is going to stay for the technical talk, and as you said, it's really fundamental.
Yep.
Staying with your rolling the dice example, does it make sense to say that, you know, everyone is rolling the dice, and whoever wins gets the reward of, there are all these transactions going on, everyone's trading money with each other.
Yeah, so
you need to actually write the transaction down, and the reward of rolling the right die is getting to write that transaction down and getting a few coins for yourself. Yeah. I'll like how I imagine it in my head is, imagine I'm a miner and I'm sitting there, and I'm just a node. I'm just someone who's connected to others who are across the world, part of this global network. They're sending me transactions that have been made throughout the network, and they're just sort of floating there, and I'm grabbing them and putting them in what's called a block. It's just a box. It's just a collection of transactions. And in order to like give that block back to the network and say, hey, these transactions, they're processed, they're done, they're complete. I can't just like give my block, because no one will accept that. I need to expend some amount of work and show that I've expended a bunch of work, like done a bunch of, run my computer for a while in order to, it's called confirm or mine the block. And so in order to have some sort of like tunable parameter that you want to make more difficult as more miners enter the system and less difficult as miners leave, you need some way to measure how much work people are doing. And there's basically just a number called the target or the difficulty that says, okay, about how much work do people need to do to mine this block? And this target, it's called the target, is tunable, and it's tunable so that roughly every 10 minutes a block is mined. And so you can imagine like there's this just collection of transactions sitting there in sort of like a transparent box. And these miners are rolling a die. It really means like they're taking that data and they're generating a random number from it. And if that number is less than target, like if number less than target, then they can put that on the block and transmit it to everyone and say, hey, look at this. I've done the work. And within that block, they can credit themselves 12.5 Bitcoin, which is $10,000 right now. So every 10 minutes, $10,000, 12.5 Bitcoin are getting created out of nothing and are going into the system. And this is how the blockchain network kind of funds itself or bootstraps itself in the beginning, and also secures the network by expending work and then showing the network, hey, look at all this work I've done. These transactions, they're here to stay. If you want to take these transactions out, if you want to remove this block, you have to do as much work as I did, which right now are like, I don't even know the number, but it's like if you run all of the computers in Google, it's about 0.01% of the power that is being generated by Bitcoin right now. Yep. Okay, so that's it for my intro talk. If you want to go and see a more technical take on things, how cryptography works in Bitcoin, how mining works, stick around. But for now, I can take some questions and we can take a break. But thank you for listening to me share with you about Bitcoin. Really enjoy it. Q&A going on right now, so anyone have any questions? Yep.
You spoke about like being a node and being a miner. Can you clarify a bit more what's the difference between like being a node, I guess, is like being a block in the network, and being a miner is finding the solutions? Can you like clarify that a bit?
Yeah, sure. So one difference is just the cost. To be a node, you just pretty much need a computer. And you need to run that, and I know people who like play games at the same time as they're running a node. Mining is much, much more costly, right? You need to be like, have a dedicated sort of room to run these in, cool them, keep them running.
In, like, computational power.
Yeah, which is really just electricity, because that's what it takes to run the computer and also the fans. But like from like a kind of cryptography or like, you know, what does it get me standpoint, the miners can get paid. The miners can mine and get Bitcoin. That's why anyone mines. That's the only purpose. Like if I want to be a miner, that's why I do it, to get paid. The nodes are more like, the nodes are really the only way to validate and know with 100% accuracy that your funds are really secure. And if it says you have 10 Bitcoin, you really do have 10 Bitcoin. There are companies like mine which kind of try to make it easier for you and retain some of those properties, like those secure properties. But the really truest way is to run a node. Yeah.
So is like a Coinbase app considered a node, in a sense?
Not really, no. When I say node, I mean more, the technical term is full node. Full being the sense that you're getting all of the transactions, you see all of the network. Because the way a node works is it straight up pulls in every transaction that has ever occurred. Like imagine doing that with Visa. Visa does like 2,000 transactions a second. Bitcoin is much smaller, so you don't have to pull in as many transactions. But it has the entire state of what has been considered valid. So whereas Coinbase is like a whole different beast where they run a full node. Coinbase runs a full node, but they just kind of show you what Bitcoin you've purchased with them right there in exchange. You go to them and you give them $100 and they give you some amount of Bitcoin. So people call them a Bitcoin bank, kind of like as a joke, because they're almost more like a regular bank than a regular like Bitcoin full node. Because if Coinbase disappeared, you probably wouldn't have any of your funds, right? So this is why like people are kind of scared of Coinbase, is because if they go down, your money may disappear as well, because it has to do with how they actually run the system. But like it's a little bit like the Mt. Gox I showed you before, where there's no way to prove that you have the money that they think that they're showing you to have. Yeah. So less guarantees are basically what you're getting when you run Coinbase, but it's much easier. So that's why people do it.
Question about the transaction price. On Bitcoin,
Yeah.
it's very high.
Yeah, it's like,
it topped like $40 US.
yeah, it's ridiculous.
$1, $100.
Yeah.
Do you see a solution for that? Do you see a state where it's going to come, let's say, more normal?
Yeah. So you could use a different coin. So you could use like Bitcoin Cash as another coin, Litecoin are two I would recommend if you don't want to pay the transaction fees of Bitcoin. But then there are new developments going on, like they're called layers, new protocol layers, where like this is what I'm working on right now and other folks are as well. We're trying to push the transactions off of the network. So where normally you would maybe have to do like 10 transactions and put them in the chain and pay fees, you instead could do all those transactions, but you would only kind of settle the difference. It's kind of like a bunch of IOUs, but they still have pretty much the same cryptographic guarantees as Bitcoin, the same validations you can run.
So just to clarify, the reason the transactions are so high is because there are all these different people making these transactions, but the block the transaction goes on is only so big.
Yeah.
So it's just everyone trying to kind of compete to get on that block.
Yeah. You can think of like the Bitcoin sort of highway for transactions is like a pipe, and you can only fit so many transactions in at a given time. So if you want your transaction to go through, you raise the fees. And the fees end up getting paid out to miners, the folks who are validating and producing new Bitcoin. So this causes like a market to arise for fees, and The fees used to be nothing. It used to be free. But now so many people are using it, trying to get their transactions in, that it rises up because there's only so many transactions you can do per second.
So it's still operating at a scale far lower than Visa, for example.
Yeah.
You've suggested switching to alternative currencies. Do you think that Bitcoin is viable in the long term despite having this sort of bottleneck?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the most important thing is what the developers are doing. The folks who actually write the code, the cryptographic protocols, design the systems for the different coins. And so there are coins out there that are objectively, like just the state of their code is objectively better than Bitcoin. But I don't think they're going to last as long as Bitcoin has the potential to, because the folks who are working on this are by far the best developers I've ever seen. Like, they're just extremely gifted in their craft. They think a lot about these things. They move a little slowly, but they catch all of the corners. And there's always going to be bugs that get through, and that's fine. But the thing with like a financial piece of software is that a single bug can totally ruin you. Like there's this coin called Zcoin, which had like a 1 byte difference in a particular line of code. And this ended up completely crashing their cryptographic guarantees, their security model. And someone came in and like inflated the store of Zcoin to, I don't know, some ridiculous number. So you need to be really detail-oriented and thoughtful and far-thinking to write this software.
Well, this brings up another risk. Is it possible that there's a coin? Do you think it's possible that there's a bug in, say, Bitcoin or Ripple or Ethereum, any of the major currencies, that could lead to some sort of deleterious effect like this?
Do I think there's one right now? No. Could there be one in the future? 100%.
So as the coin becomes modified, we have to be concerned about this.
Yeah, and that's why that's why I think the most important thing when looking at a coin is who's working on it and like what's their track record. Another way you could think about it is there are these in software in like not really hacker circles, but just in most software are things called bug bounties, where if you find a bug in the software and you can be anyone, you just do this for your own time, you get paid to do it, whatever. If you submit a bug on some piece of software, like Facebook, for example, they'll give you some money. They'll pay you. And you can just do this on your own time, and people do this. The thing with Bitcoin is that it's really, you can think of it as like a $100 billion bug bounty. If you can figure out a way to hack Bitcoin, there's just like billions of dollars sitting there waiting for you to try to hack it. So you're welcome to. And there's a speaker in the space who has like a really good metaphor for it. It's like this software where they don't make it open and viewable and attackable. It's like a bubble boy. He has this kind of fake protection about himself that assumes he's protected from the outside world, from all the diseases and the bad things. And then Bitcoin is like a sewer rat. Not the best picture, but think of it this way. A sewer rat has been through a lot in its life. And it's gained a lot of protections against all of the horrible things it's seen in its day-to-day life in the sewers. So Bitcoin has all these protections from being around for 9 years at this point, and still no one has had like a major attack against it. There's been bugs, there's always bugs, and there's been some kind of troublesome bugs, but nothing where the whole system collapses. So that's really amazing to write software that good. So yeah, the developers are really important.
What makes the Bitcoin so protected?
The cryptography that's used in it. So there are just mathematical proofs for when you perform this certain type of algorithm. They're called digital signatures. Digital signatures, they're like normal signatures where you write a check and you say, yes, I attest to this, this is correct. but they're digital, and they're provably secure. Given certain assumptions, which I won't talk about, that's like a whole another thing, but you could also look at it as like our whole online system runs on this cryptography, these algorithms. So it's because of them that Bitcoin has its security. And the miners who are mining, expending energy to secure the system.
For the system to be secure, you need the miner. But
yes.
It will come a day when mining will cost more in electricity than the Bitcoin you will receive in return.
Right.
And we're close to this day.
Yeah.
So what do you think will happen with the Bitcoin blockchain when there's no miner anymore?
Right.
I mean, I think China is about to ban mining.
Yeah.
Right? So
yeah, someone just told me this earlier, and
when there's no miner.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if there's no miners, then the Bitcoin won't work. It needs miners to work.
So don't you think another money like, I don't know, there's a lot of altcoin, as you said.
Yeah.
Don't you think another money with like proof of stake or something else than mining will take over Bitcoin someday?
It could. We don't really know how proof of stake. Proof of stake is this alternative to mining where you basically say, like everyone who has some amount of coin, like Bitcoin, periodically, every 10 minutes, let's say, they put up some funds, like they slap some coins down on the table and say, if I lie to you, I lose this. And it's sort of like a gambling game theoretic thing where if enough people do it and are truthful about it, they won't lose their coin and the system will go on. So that could work. We really haven't seen like a real life use case, like it usable in the wild yet. But the thing with mining is it's like, don't give up hope on mining just yet. Because two things can happen. Either the price of mining, like it'll not be worth mining, which means fewer miners will do it. And when fewer miners are mining at the same time, it's actually easier to mine. Like if I'm the only miner in the world, then I'm gonna win that gamble, that rolling the die. Every time, 10 minutes, I'm gonna get a bunch of Bitcoin. The moment you come in, oh crap, now it's twice as hard. But if you come out, I'm back to winning every time.
So what you're saying is that mining follows a very traditional supply-demand curve.
Yes.
And as the costs go up and costs exceed the payoff, the miners decrease and the costs will go down.
Yep. Yeah. Very just supply and demand.
So basically the market is supposed to follow the amount of miners in the world.
Yeah. And there's another way for miners to get money. It's by fees. And we've actually seen this already. Like the recent blocks in the last couple months, some of them have paid out more in fees than that block payout, that 12.5 Bitcoin, which is a really, really good sign because that's how it should work into the future.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is it true that there is a cap on the amount of Bitcoin that can be mined, like total?
Yeah. Yep. It's roughly 21 million.
So, like, what happens if there's you're saying that miners are necessary to the whole process, but
Yeah.
if there's no more coins to be mined, what happens?
Like I said, they won't get that block reward, that 12.5 that just comes out of thin air injected into the system. They'll instead get money from fees. So there's, let's say, 10,000 transactions. Each of them pay a thousandth of a Bitcoin, or each of them pay a tenth of a Bitcoin. In the end, they're going to have, what's the math there? 100 Bitcoin from the fees, right? So they'll, just from people using it, they'll get paid. You can think of the block reward as serving two purposes. One, it's to bootstrap the system. Like when people don't really use it too much, like this is a way to incentivize them. And it's a way to actually inject the coins into the system without a third party, without like the central bank printing out money.
So this is running a bit long. We have time for one more question. I know there was some of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so my question is, you were saying that the miners actually get rewarded with bitcoins that are created out of thin air.
Yeah.
How is that different than printing money from the central bank?
Yeah, excellent question. Yeah, thank you for thinking a little bit deeper about that. Because, yeah, it's like, what the hell? Isn't this what we were trying to escape? Yeah. The big difference is that it's not arbitrary. So what that means is that, like, I told you that this is how Bitcoin works. And you know, and it's, like, pretty much certain because changing this is very, very, very difficult. You pretty much know that it's going to be 12.5 Bitcoin, and it actually halves every 4 years. But you know the schedule. The schedule is not arbitrary. It's known from the outset. And if you don't like that system, there's a bunch of other coins you can go to. So it's rather than like the central bank saying, this is the system, you live in my country, deal with it. It's, these are all the options available to you. If you like this coin and its mode of paying out better, you buy that coin. Part of the peer-to-peer decentralized nature of it. So yeah, to me that's very different because I have a bunch of options, but there has to be printing money somehow, in the sense that like if you start from nothing, you can't go to something without printing money.
But the point is it's predictable.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's thank Alex for his time. I'm sure if you have any more questions, he'll be happy to talk to you. And in about a half.